The opinions and statements expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of WWDB, its staff, or management.
Entrepreneur, author, and financial consultant Mark Bernstein helps high-performing entrepreneurial business owners create a vision for the future and follow through on their goals and intentions. Ange Oranato is a business growth strategist who blends psychology and business together to create conscious leaders and business owners who impact the world. Founders Forum is a radio show podcast sharing the real stories behind entrepreneurship as founders discover more about themselves while providing valuable lessons and some fun and entertainment for you. Now, here's Mark and Ange.
Good morning, America. How are you? There's a reason why I say that, and I'll just tell you really quickly about that. Many of you know I'm a musician, and that's a song that was made famous by Arlo Guthrie, actually written by Steve Goodman. And my dog is Arlo Guthrie's namesake. I have a dog named Arlo, and I was looking at him this morning. And I have a neighbor that every time he sees Arlo does quotes from Alice's Restaurant, because that's what he thinks of. I think of Good Morning America, how are you? So Good Morning America, good morning wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. It's the morning in Philadelphia today on WWDB Radio, but you're probably listening to this as a podcast. So wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day. And I'm here with my co-host, Ange Oranato. And Ange, I know you have some thoughts driving in this morning. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so, I have a good almost an hour ride or so into the studio, so I have a lot of good time for downloads and stuff. And this morning, as I'm thinking about and preparing for our conversation with our amazing guest today, the idea popped into my head about transitions. And if I'm honest with myself, I'm not very good at them. I don't necessarily like change. I don't embody them. I'm kind of a slow adopter, as they say. And, I'm just thinking about wondering and curious about you, Mark. I mean, are you a kind of a go-with-the-flow kind of person? Are you more calculated? As seasons change, businesses change, where do you fall in that mix?
So you said slow adopter. It could be slow adapter, too, I guess.
Well, I'm probably both.
Right. So I've been accused of that, actually, myself. I was a partner in a firm for a long time. And the founder of that firm used to tell me that I resisted change. And I did a lot of thinking about that, and I realized I was not resistant to change at all. I like change. But what they would do is go in often without any kind of plan, introduce a new initiative, and in months it was gone. And that's what drove me crazy. Like, you do something and not doing it right. So what I realized is, and I also realized that because I'm a planner, I'm a fact finder, I'm a high fact finder, I like to have my ducks in a row. But I've also learned, and we were just talking about it with this radio show podcast, this is something we kind of jumped into without having much of a plan.
No, definitely not.
And we're learning along the way, right? So I've learned sometimes you just got to do things. But I do like to I did have somewhat of a plan around this. We had an outline, we had some basic ideas. So I'm a pretty quick adapter these days, as long as there's some planning behind it. I need some modicum of planning.
Right. So what I'm hearing, it's all about balance and harmony, right? So we have to be able to take risks and go with things, but have some structure and plan around it. And it's also an awesome segue to our absolutely exciting guest today. And I can't wait till you guys hear his story. I'm cheating a little bit because Alex Wolfe is a very good friend of mine. He's an inspiring founder and business person, and I consider him a real soul brother as well. And when you hear his story, I think you're going to see why I think he's so extraordinary. And, his story is so interesting because of the transitions, because of the things he's been able to do and embody and drive forward. And I think it's going to be really interesting for anybody out there who's also captivated by what makes founders do what they do.
So with that, why don't you give a little introduction to Alex, and we'll talk about transitions, maybe to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but, Alex is somebody that, I look at and say, wow, he went from a place of, and he's going to tell us all about this, a place of, fear at one point to turning that into a career and to following his intuition and the way that the universe unfolded and started other ventures. And I think it's a really great lesson for all of us, too, because I think so many of us get stuck in the shoulds and would and the fear. And Alex has a great story around that. So Alex Wolfe, thank you for joining the podcast and the show today. So welcome, and looking forward to kind of hearing a little about your story.
Can I just say one thing about Alex that I'm already excited about? He hasn't sat down the whole time. We're watching him on Zoom from afar, and he's standing up. He's really excited. He's showing it all in the way he's walking around the desk or the table, wherever he is. And as a result, I think it's going to be a really fun show. So
lots of energy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
thanks,
Alex,
guys. Thanks, Ange. Thanks, Mark. Yeah,
Sure.
happy to be here. Excited. I've had my Eon's Smart Mushroom Coffee, so I got lots of energy and excited to share all the stories with you guys. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, we'll talk about that, I know, but I can't wait to try it, except that I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm requesting some mushroom tea if you can conjure that up.
We'll set you up, Mark.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, so Alex, with that, start from the beginning. When you and I first met, and the first thing I really heard you speak about in any length was your story. I mean, just jump in and tell us how this kind of came about for you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ange. Yeah, definitely had lots of transitions in my life, and it's been an exciting ride, and it still is as I transition into another international venture. But I guess it all started for me as a kid. You know, I had a good childhood. I have great parents. They're still together and I love them dearly. But my biggest fear as a kid was I was afraid of heights. I had a really, intense fear of heights. I wouldn't go on any balconies, or I wouldn't go on any roller coaster rides or any rides at the amusement park. It was pretty crippling. I didn't get to experience a bunch of things like that through my childhood. And then until one day, my parents kind of cleverly tricked me into taking a flying lesson at 17 years old. They just thought it would be really cool for me, and they tricked me into it, so that they brought me to the airport and like, hey, we got a surprise for you, and it's a flying lesson. And at first I had tons of resistance. I was freaking out, but they convinced me to do it, and I'm so glad they did. Because once I got in the airplane and the plane takes off with the instructor next to me, and then he said, the three words, "You have control," and I had no choice but to take control of the airplane and take the yoke. And now all of a sudden I'm flying the plane, and I remember looking out the window and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy, and the plane's going higher and higher and higher. I had no fear. I realized I was in control. All of a sudden I'm flying the plane, and whether it was true or not, the instructor looked at me and goes, wow, you're a natural. You're really good at this. And that just landed at the time. And I was like, man, maybe I am really good at this. And then it was in those moments that I realized, really quickly, that all those years, those 17 years of being afraid of heights was really an illusion. That was like a big aha moment for me. And then, we had the flight lesson. I came around and I was just on, cloud nine, pun intended. But
you're using a lot of puns. You mentioned landed before, right? Too. You're doing great with the puns.
Thank you. I'm having fun with it. But yeah, it was just a whole paradigm shift for me. And then I had a whole new perspective, and I became obsessed with flying airplanes for the next, few chapters of my life. I really dove into it. And, I became a commercial pilot by 19 years old. I was one of the youngest commercial pilots in Canada at the time. I quickly after that became a flight instructor. And then, by 24, I was instructing the military how to fly. So I was really like a young Top Gun in my age and in my age group. And I just became obsessed with flying. And I got checked out on, over 35 aircraft in my career, and flew helicopters and private jets. And that brought me all over the world, meeting interesting people and founders. And that's what opened up many doors for me, and then eventually became a founder myself. So it was really, facing that fear and transitioning from fear to having fun with it that really made a big impact in my life.
That's an amazing story, Alex. And by the way, I'll be thinking of you tonight. I'm with a friend of mine who's a pilot himself, and he's taken me up in his plane a few times. And I have another friend, though, who's deathly afraid of flying commercial flights even. And he kind of twisted his arm to go up in the little plane with him a few times. And my friend now comfortably flies commercial flights. So not as extreme as your story, but it parallels it a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you're a founder of some really interesting companies. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? And then I have a question for you around that.
Sure. Yeah. I founded several companies over the years. It was really aviation that, like I said, brought me into those rooms with powerful people and powerful business leaders until I got the idea one day I got inspired after a
Wait,
plant
Alex,
medicine
and
journey.
not to interrupt you, but can you just tell real quick the story about you and your best friend and how this actually came together?
Yeah, sure,
About
absolutely.
Peru?
So, yeah, that's a good one too. So it was 2016. I was a pilot at the time, and my best friend and current business partner Jeff called me. He was living in Toronto. I was living in Montreal. And he's like, man, I got to come see you. I had this crazy dream last night. And I was like, okay, everything okay? He's like, oh yeah, everything's great. And then he showed up at my door, 5 hours later. And he's like, I had this dream that we were in and I finished this sentence. And I said, Peru. And he's like, yeah, how did you know? I was like, I don't know. I just had this feeling that we were in Peru. And this was on a Friday. And by Monday, we were in Peru. We booked our tickets and we went on this crazy adventure.
So there's no pause and transitions for Alex. I just want to point out. It happens.
We got the intuitive download and we followed it. We took inspired action and I'm so grateful we did. So we were in Peru and then we met up with this spiritual guide and he brought us to do some plant medicine journeys deep in the jungle of Peru. And we sat with ayahuasca. And that really changed my paradigm again. Up until that point, like I said, I was a pilot. And the piloting was great for my career. It really taught me a lot of skills, in the matrix or the business world. It taught me how to be organized. It taught me how to operate from a checklist. It taught me how to be responsible and double, triple check everything. And it taught me how to lead a team, managing a team of people. But it also left me very much living in my head, and I was always living from my head, always thinking a few steps ahead, as you have to be for a pilot. And what that did is it left me very much disconnected to myself and other people, always being in my head. And it wasn't until that plant medicine journey that it really cracked me open. And then I became aware of what it's like to be in your heart for the first time. And that was a total paradigm shift for me again. And it really inspired myself and my business partner, and the spiritual guide near the end of that trip brought us to the top of Machu Picchu. And he was like, okay, well, with all these, downloads that you guys got, what do you want to do next? And we both set an intention on the top of Machu Picchu that day that we wanted to bring plant medicines to the world because they were so inspiring. And then that was in 2016. By 2018, I had went out and raised $60 million. I co-founded and launched one of the biggest cannabis companies in the world. It was legal in Canada by that time, and took it public and, made my shareholders some money. And, we created and now it has over, I think 200 employees. So it's like we created something epic just by being inspired by plant medicines and wanting to bring it to the world. So that was another huge transition for me.
That's an amazing story. I won't get into it, but I was talking to Ange about transitions earlier today, and I have a son who's had difficulty with transitions, and one of his awakening actually was in it's a long story, but he was born in Paraguay, and we took a trip back to Paraguay, and we went to Machu Picchu after that. And I believe that trip was huge in terms of his awakening in certain ways. So it's kind of an interesting coincidence. I've not done a planned medicine journey, but it's on my bucket list. I would love to do that. I'd love to talk to you about that more.
Absolutely.
Hey, one of the questions is, so we've talked about some great successes. You're clearly a quick adapter. You tend to jump into things. It's great. And I want to be careful about how I use the word failure, because I don't believe there is failure. I believe that, if you listen to Edison and you listen to Einstein and guys like that, failures are just steps along the way to success and along the journey. But for lack of a better word, missteps, let's call them missteps. Maybe you've had some missteps that you've learned from. Can you think of any that have had a major impact on you along the way in your business journey or your personal journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely had some missteps or failures or whatever you want to call them. And I agree. They were just turned into major lessons for me. And, I had, now that I've launched several successful brands, but prior to that, I had 4 or 5 brands that were failure to launch. We put a lot of time and energy into them and just couldn't get them going, bring them to market. And I learned a lot about business throughout those ventures. who to surround yourself with. Surround yourself with people that are on the same path as you and are where you want to be, and listening to the right people. Shareholders, another one, like I mentioned, I raised $60 million for that company, but some of it wasn't the people that were aligned with us, energetically. So that was another big lesson, is when you're raising money, get people that are aligned with you on the same path, because you're taking a journey with these people. So it's a whole thing. I also, worked in the nightlife industry for a while, and that was probably slowed me down a little bit. I had a lot of fun, but, drinking alcohol every weekend would probably just slowed down my progress. So that was another interesting misstep or lesson.
These are great. Alex, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
Hold that thought. We have to take a quick break. 60 seconds. We'll be back.
You got it.
Thanks.
Establishing a self-directed Roth IRA or other self-directed retirement plan offers access to investment options usually only available to well-connected or wealthy individuals. Anyone can build wealth and achieve tax-free income for life and financial freedom without the inordinate risk of speculative investing, securities trading, exotic financial instruments, or hoping for the best from the stock market. Since their start in 2003, Camaplan has come to be synonymous with expertise, flexibility, responsiveness, and diversity in investment choices. They provide innovative investment opportunities for investors seeking direct control and more choices in how they deploy their investment capital. Camaplan doesn't just make it possible to invest in alternative assets, they also teach investors how to put their money to work. Take the road to financial freedom today. Go to camaplan.com/IRA.
We are back at Founders Forum with my co-host, Ange Honorado, and our guest today, Alex Wolfe, having a great conversation. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ange.
Yeah, so welcome back. And Alex, thanks for again for being here today. And I know I said at the top of our conversation today that we needed probably 2-3 hours to really sit with Alex to kind of dive into some of these things. But what I want to do to make sure that we have a good amount of time to chat about is, the cannabis company was obviously a huge success. And I think just to kind of shortcut and getting into the meat of the story is when you've started your new company, Circadian Wellness, and my favorite, Eon's Coffee, and the Smart Mushroom space. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. So I'm going to ask you kind of a two-part question, Alex. One is, tell us a little bit about sort of the genesis behind this. Why did this become, big business number 2 for you, and what were you trying to bring to the world? And secondly, just a fun thought is, if you were having a cup of your favorite, smart coffee with any historical figure, or maybe even a current one that, if you could have coffee with them for an hour, who would that be, and what would you want to do with that conversation?
I love that. Thank you, Ange. So I was in, like I mentioned, I was in the cannabis space, and then I launched another company called Shop CBD, and I was living in California at the time. And I was under the pressure of another startup and managing a team. And despite doing all these things to manage my health, I was working out, I was eating clean, I still had a bunch of anxiety and brain fog and fatigue. And it wasn't until I got a call from a shareholder who was a naturopathic doctor, and he said 3 words that changed my life again. And he said, "Heal your gut." And I said, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You got to tell me more." He's like, "Look, I've been studying the gut biome for 20 years. And if you could understand the relationship between your gut, the sun, the soil, fungi, your brain, and beyond, you will shift, or you'll upgrade your relationship to nature, and you will shift from a consumer to a co-creator in this world." And that was the line that set me on another paradigm again. And I became obsessed with studying mushrooms and its relationship to the gut biome. I learned that 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And I started a protocol of functional mushrooms, reishi for sleep, cordyceps for energy, turkey tail and chaga for gut health, lion's mane for cognitive function. And I began to get into peak performance. I was feeling better than ever. I had this clarity between my gut and my brain, and it just made all my decision-making a lot better and easier. and all my relationships began to improve as well. And that's what truly inspired me to start this company, Circadian Wellness, was create like a Unilever of wellness brands, starting with Eon's functional mushroom brand, combined with biotechnology, to give people a fun and innovative way to consume these functional mushrooms that have been around for eons, but also to really just get them to live their best life on a daily basis naturally. You know, for me, it's all nature has all the answers. And it's just getting people more in tune with tapping into nature again. And if that's through functional mushrooms, that was my first mission to do. So we've launched Eons now in 50 states, and it's going really well. The feedback is phenomenal, and
it's amazing, by the way.
Thank you, Ange. Thank you so much. And the first product that we came out with was Eon Smart Mushroom Coffee. It's a smarter way to drink coffee. It's really like a superfood smoothie disguised as a coffee. It's loaded with adaptogens and nootropics and vitamins and minerals and a bunch of functional mushrooms. So it gives you a lot of energy, but without the jitters, without the anxiety, without the caffeine crash. It's really a special formula. On that note, who would I want to have an Eon Smart Mushroom Coffee with historically? That's a good question. I'd say, if we're going really historically, I'd say probably Alan Watts. Alan Watts was a big impact in my life. He's such an interesting fellow, and he's got all these different ways of looking at life, different perceptions, and this kind of stuff. And he's passed away. So if I had the opportunity, I'd probably love to just sit down and have a smart coffee with him.
That's awesome. Great. That's a great one to pick as well. And by the way, you and I are going to have to talk more. I love all this stuff, and I'm very much into functional health.
I thought he would like the woo that we bring to the world, Alex.
I love the woo, and I'm on that journey myself, and I haven't incorporated mushrooms enough. So I definitely want to talk to you about that.
We have to actually get Alex. He doesn't really know this yet, but the mushroom capital of the world is where?
Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Kennett Square, where I live. Yeah.
So that's amazing.
We're going to have to get him up here.
Have to get into town, right?
Yeah.
Do the mushroom tour.
Absolutely.
I got it.
Yep.
So that's great.
I love it.
So listen, you're very a forward-thinking guy, and which is great, because this is, we were going to call the show the Founders Forward Focus Forum, but it was too long, so we just call it Founders Forum. So I love your forward focus, and the question that I'd love to ask you about that, Alex, is if you were looking out, and I'll give you the choice, either 3 years or 10 years. I think 3 years is a very digestible kind of vision, so maybe we start with that. But if this were, April of 2026, and we're talking, the three of us are talking, and you're looking back on the last 3 years, what kind of things would have to happen to you? And you could choose this, business-wise, professionally, developmentally, any of that over that 3 year period for you to feel like that was a successful 3 year period?
Oh, wow. Great question, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, 3 years, I believe, for that to be super successful, which is what I'm going for, is we've created, or 4 years, created.
No, that was the 4 minute signal for the show. So you can stay with 3 years.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, I'll stay with 3 years. In 3 years, if we've created the Unilever of wellness, then I've definitely done something right. That's what I'm going for. I'm creating something that's never been created before, which is a massive incubator of brands in the wellness space. And why that excites me and why that's my mission and gets me out of bed every day with enthusiasm is that means we're going to transform a lot of lives, and we're going to transform a lot of lives naturally, which I alluded to earlier is really the key for me, is getting people tap back into nature. As much as technology helps us get through the day and connect on a business level, I feel people have kind of lost touch with nature. So if we could do that through fun and innovative brands and combining that with biotechnology to get people tapped into nature again, feeling like their best selves and evolving, then I've done something that I can leave a legacy behind to my kids, and that's what's truly inspiring for me.
That is wonderful. Are you, by the way, something I don't know about you personally, do you have kids today, or?
No, I don't have kids, so okay. I'm still on that.
Okay, you're on that journey too. So
one day. That's
very
Let me
focused.
have a little fun. Let me ask you what your vision is around that over the next 3 years. Any future vision about relationship or kids?
That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, that would be awesome. That's something I've shared this with Ange and in our mastermind group, but I've dedicated the next year of my life just building this business and just stay focused and pour all my energy into this thing. So I'm not currently dating on purpose. I've taken a path of celibacy for the first time in my life, which has been a whole new paradigm shift again. But I've just been able to channel all this energy into this business. And that's why I believe, it's really taking off. Another pun, but we've made so many deals internationally and partnered up with all these amazing companies in Brazil and Uruguay. And like I said, we're creating that's never been created before. So I feel like I have to do things that I've never done before. And that's what I'm working on right now. And it's so far so good.
Well, looking at 3 years, maybe something will happen. So
amazing.
We'll keep in touch.
So as we're getting ready to wrap up here, Alex, I want to make sure that we've got time to let people know how to get in touch with you. But before we do, real quick, a couple rapid fire questions just for some fun. So 1 or 2 word answers. So your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is, mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself makes you fearless. Lao Tzu.
Oh, love it. What's a favorite book you're sharing right now? What are you reading? What are you talking about to people?
Well, I'm just rereading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's one of my favorites, and
love it.
I can't get enough of it.
Yep, absolutely. And last but not least, where can people find you? Online as well as any upcoming personal appearances or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks, Ange. LinkedIn, Alex Wolfe, or Instagram at Mr. Alex Wolfe. Our Eon's page is at Eon's Family, and we're very interactive with our followers on there too. And I'm doing a podcast circuit right now, so there'll be lots of podcasts coming out. And I'll be speaking at Mind Valley in Estonia, in Europe, in July. So
amazing,
look forward to that.
Amazing, Alex. Thank you so much. Can't wait to continue our conversations, and thanks for joining us today.
Alex, great to have you here today. Thank you, Ange, for bringing Alex on and for conducting a great interview. And we're happy to be with all of you today on another great day in Philadelphia on WWDB Radio. See you soon.
We hope you enjoyed your time with Founders Forum today and you found value to take with you throughout your day. Join us again next week for another episode of Founders Forum on WWDB Talk Radio and always at the Founders Forum show page at WWDBAM.com.